WDHA's Reconnect with Rockers. I'm reconnecting with an old friend that unfortunately I don't feel like I've connected with him in like 20 years, but I am so happy to be here with Damon Johnson, who I always think of as like the ultimate in working musicians. Damon, when I think of you, you're a guy who, I first became familiar with, obviously, in the 1990s with Brother Kane, who was like the 90s radio band that wasn't grunge. Does that make sense?
Yeah, we were proud of that. I mean,
Yeah.
we loved a lot of those grunge bands, but there was no doubt we were we were flying our own flag at a time when it was hard to get attention, and we were fortunate. We had a lot of. Man, you guys played lots of Brother Kane
Oh
on
my God,
WDHA.
we still get requests for Brother. I still have people like, what about Got No Shame? Well, you guys aren't doing that. What about In Full Shine On? Because Brother Kane was just, look, a great rock and roll band. You've got bands that have come out, whether it's Rival Sons or Greta Van Fleet or, these bands that sound like rock bands. And no matter what the trend of music is, there is always room and there's always a place for bands that sound like rock bands. And you guys, here's the greatest part about a Brother Kane record. So has stood the test of time. I could put you guys on now next to a Shinedown record, next to a Corey Taylor record, next to a Skinner record. And Brother Kane still stands the test of time. So congratulations, because a lot of bands can't say that.
Well, listen, I take that compliment to the full extent that you mean it. And I'm so proud of that. We always use that word timeless when we were recording. Is well, how do we want this to sound? We just want it to sound timeless. Because ultimately it's all about the song. And I've taken everything that you just described about Brother Kane, and that's really kind of the mission statement of what I'm doing now as a solo artist. I just want to continue in that. I got away from it for a while, as you know. I got to work with some great bands, and Alice Cooper and Thin Lizzy, and I love all that, and it was incredible. But I'm back to wanting to write my songs and tell my stories and be back behind the microphone, and I'm loving it. And the goal is to keep it timeless and keep it about the songs. So thank you so much for what you just said about Brother Kane.
It's my pleasure. You're a songwriter. And songwriters should write songs. Well, I saw you on the Alice tour. And I thought also, though, that those were great opportunities for you, too, because you're also a phenomenal guitar player. And I think you really had the opportunity to shine on those tours also, because people were like, when I saw you, people were like, is that Damon from Brother Kane? Like, people didn't hear you playing that type of guitar. Right. So, I think it was just such a great opportunity for you to be able to broaden your horizon. And the Alice show is such a big show. That's
always
a big show.
Yeah, totally, Terrie. And Alice always wanted us out front, in the spotlight, being a performer as well. And I learned so much from him. And, you and I may have talked about this back in the 90s that, I just wanted to be a guitar player in the beginning. I got behind the microphone totally out of necessity. We were going to lose our development deal with Virgin Records. Because
wow, is that true?
They liked our songs and they liked my guitar playing. But Terrie, we went through a dozen singers and we just couldn't find something that made sense. So the A&R guy was in town one night here, when I still lived in Birmingham, and he heard us play some songs at a club. And to give the singer a break, I sang a few songs myself. And if it hadn't been for that night and him sort of forcing me, he said, look, you have to get behind the mic in the studio tomorrow. Let's see what this sounds like, because we're out of time. We're out of money. Either this is going to work or we're going to have to, part ways and move on. Wow. And one year later, Got No Shame was the #1 rock song.
Yeah, you guys were a radio band. We have bands that are radio bands and they continue to give radio hits, and we love radio bands. And Brother Kane was a big 90s radio band. So let's talk about Battle Lessons, and let's talk about making music in these bizarre times. And what is it like to do it in these bizarre times? How much of this was done, before, if any, we went into a lockdown? And what is it like for you to be so solitary and kind of isolated from everything? Because you're, road warrior. You've been out on the road, and, most of your life, your adult life. So what has this been like for you?
Yeah, it's been tough. I'm sure it's been similar responses from other artists that you've talked to. And
Everyone.
I'm so grateful that the bulk of the songs were already written, Terry. I started writing these songs back in October and November of last year. So we went in the studio in February and got started, and that's when we tracked Battle Lessons and a couple of other songs. And the goal had been for the whole thing to be completed and out right now. I think literally September 25th was the date we put on the calendar. That was the goal. So once the pandemic hit in March, we couldn't get back in the studio. Everyone was sheltering in place, which I totally support that. And so much uncertainty. And we just kept thinking, well, we'll be able to get back to work soon. And 1 month turned into 2, turned into 4. And thankfully, when they eased the restrictions in Nashville, we were able to get back in and do another batch of 3 songs. So as I'm talking to you right now, 6 of the 9 songs are finished, mixed, mastered, done. So I've still got some work left to do. The songs are written. We've just been having to juggle schedules and, skate around the pandemic. And I also want to say that as a songwriter, I'm extra grateful that the songs for this record were basically written, Terry, because it's hard to be creative right now. It's hard to get in that mindset and that freedom of, there's a lot of distractions that I feel like kind of prevent the ideas from flowing freely, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh my goodness, because your mind is always going bip, 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 bip. It's very,
Yeah.
very hard to get that creative flow. I can see that.
I mean, I'm always writing riffs and melodies, vocal melodies and things like that. And then once I sit down with pen and paper and go, well, what is this going to be about? You just immediately start thinking about this moment that we're
Yeah.
in world history, in our nation's history, everything that's going on politically. And I'm not saying I don't want to write about that. I haven't stumbled on something yet that I felt really excited enough about to take to the finish line and try and complete. So I've written a couple new songs that are cool, that are not about coronavirus.
Yeah,
Or
right. Well,
or
Battle Lessons is one of those songs, I think. And it's such a
yeah.
rocker. It's just a rocker. It's what everybody loves to feel now too, because songs like that are fresh and familiar bring you back to that feeling of just rock and roll, which I think, talking to listeners every day, people love that. They want to feel that rock and roll in the depth of their soul that has inspired them as a music listener. So talk to me a little bit about that song.
Well, Battle Lessons is definitely a track that I knew was special. I've got a longtime friend and collaborator, Jim Troglin, and we've been able to write together really since Brother Kane ended around 2000. We've done a lot of stuff together, Terry. And I knew I wanted this record as a whole to have tempo, more guitars, and hopefully songs that would kind of create that energy as well as the sound. I wanted the words to get the same energy across as the music would. So I had a really special thing happen just last week. We were celebrating the passing of my all-time hero, Eddie Van Halen. And a buddy of mine called me, he says, hey man, I want you to play anything off of the first Van Halen record. Play one song on your headphones and then press play on Battle Lessons and call me back. And what was so exciting, it's like the energy was absolutely similar. Big riff,
Yep.
right out of the gate, big powerful drums, vocal right in your face, a chorus that lifts, and one of the guitar solos I'm most proud of anything I've played on the last 3 or 4 records. So I called my friend back and I said, hey man, thank you for that. I said,
Yeah, that's inspiring. That's inspiring. That makes you
that's
feel it.
inspiring. I totally think you're right. And it was sort of I don't know, in a way it was this unique tribute for me in my own head to Eddie. Like if Eddie could have heard that song, I'm sure he
Yeah.
would have said, hey buddy,
Yeah.
you're doing it. That sounds
Yeah.
great.
Well, you had such a connection. You guys were out, if memory serves me right, was it the Balance Tour that
Yeah,
Brother Kane was opened up all the North American dates on the Balance Tour, and you also wrote this great piece about Eddie years
yeah,
ago. Was it Rip Magazine?
yeah. Very
It was
good,
like new
Terry.
guitar hero interviews his guitar hero. And
Yeah.
first of all, I want to talk about what was that moment like for you walking in, kind of pen and paper, however you guys did the interview, and interviewing one of your heroes.
Yeah, well, I had thankfully had a chance to kind of get over my initial. I was starstruck. I'd seen Eddie in concert a dozen times throughout my life, and certainly as a teenager. But we'd never really crossed paths or had a chance to talk to each other. So that's a great story, Terry. The very first show we did with them, their tour manager found me, and he said, "Hey, Damon, I'm Scotty. I understand you're a big fan of Ed's," and I'm like, "The biggest." And he says, "Well, listen, he's down by the dressing room if you want to go down and say hello." And he couldn't get the sentence out of his mouth before I was already up and just running to the dressing room area.
I picture the beginning of Got No Shame, like the harmonica, like that would have been a great video to have you like
that
zipping down there.
that was the perfect soundtrack. You're right.
Right.
That was the perfect soundtrack. So I go down there to their dressing room, and I very quietly stick my head in the door. There's nobody there. There's 2 or 3 dressing rooms that say band. I can't find it. So I'm like, well, I'll run into him later. So I go down to our dressing room, and I walk in the door, and on the far side of the room, there's Edward. He's digging through the cooler that we have all of our Gatorades and sodas and stuff like that. And I just said, "Hey man, why don't you go down to your own dressing room and get your own drinks?" And he spun around and just cracked up, and we hugged, and he goes, "You must be Damon." And I mean, it was like a dream, Terry.
Wow.
It couldn't have been better. So by the time toward the end of that tour is when I did the interview with him, thanks to my great friend Catherine Turman at Rip Magazine. It was her idea, and I was so thrilled. But we just sat down and had a great conversation because we'd already established a bit of a friendship, so I was super comfortable. And I'm still trying to find an old copy of that. I know I have one here somewhere. I gotta dig it up. But I did share a lot of pictures last weekend on my Twitter and my Facebook
Yeah, I
and
saw
stuff.
some of
So
those. Really nice. And you guys are just the big smiles, and Eddie looked
yeah,
so comfortable and trusting, and it just really was like a poignant moment when I saw those photos.
well, thank you. And I, one of my other big takeaways from that is he encouraged me to continue to be a lead singer and a lead guitar player.
Hmm.
Uh, kind of under his breath, he's like, "Man, if I had a voice like yours," he goes, "I would have been the singer myself." He goes, "Lead singers are a pain in the ass, man."
Oh man, what a great
So,
story.
yeah, yeah. So, ah, it's and that kind of encouragement, I can't deny that informed me. That was, I was like, man, if this guy's the greatest of all time, and
Could you
he's
ever
given me.
imagine, like when you were in high school, that the guy would be giving you encouragement? It was
No,
Edward Van Halen. No, no, you never
no.
think that. Never think
I
that.
I've said it before. It's like if teenage me could have seen 32-year-old me, back then, I just wouldn't have believed it. There's just no way. So,
What a great
but
story.
all that rock and roll, honestly, Terry, even and then my time with Alice, my time with Thin Lizzy and Black Star Riders, it has informed this new record, Battle Lessons. I still have people sometimes and friends and family, talk to me. They're like, "Well, what about your next record and building your audience, and you're in Nashville now, you could do country music." And I'm like, hell no. I'm gonna write songs for my own personal satisfaction, my own enjoyment. This record, when it's all finished, Terry, I've made Battle Lessons to give myself a record that I can put on and listen to when I want to rock out. I want to hear good songs. I want to hear a great band playing together. And that's exactly what it's turning out to be. I definitely could not have imagined making a record this focused with this quality of songs on it. I can't wait for you to hear the whole thing. I'm so proud of it.
Oh, I
And,
can't wait. I can't
you know,
wait.
once we get the green light to get back to work, as far as traveling, you know, I got a feeling we're going to be able to be out for a long time pushing this thing, because I want to make, you know, put out several singles and make more videos and, you know, do it, because
I love it.
the songs deserve that.
A full circle record for you, really. Because you said this is kind of, you know, what you've basically said is this is kind of the record that you've always wanted to make. So talk to me about the band, because I want to talk about, you know, Damon Johnson and the Get Ready, and you've got the three piece, right? I'm a sucker for
Yeah,
a three piece. I tell
yeah,
people that all the time. Who did I have on recently? I had Tyler Bryant from Tyler Bryant and the Shakedown. Great, just amazing young
yeah.
new artist, and they're a three piece band too. And there's just something about a three piece that man, that noise just sounds so sweet to me all the time. So tell me a little bit about your band.
Well, thank you so much for asking about the Get Ready. This is the first time I've had a band moniker ever. So it's the debut album of Damon Johnson, the Get Ready. But my drummer, Jared Pope, we've been friends for over a decade. He's been one of my favorite drummers for a long time. He lives here in Nashville. Robbie Harrington, my bass player. What's really interesting about the three of us, Terrie, is that we all really met when we were playing some like modern country music back in the late 2000, like 2008, 2007, somewhere in there. And when I crossed paths with each of them, it's like I made a little note in my head, like, man, those guys are great rock players. You know, maybe somewhere down the road we could do something together. So, you know, the calendar and time and circumstances, and you know, I moved to Nashville in 2013. Jared moved here the next year, and Robbie had already been here. And this is, and I was envisioning as far back as like 2013, 14, when I first started thinking about maybe one day I'd do a solo thing full time. So they're world-class players. They're world-class guys. And I really take it as a big responsibility, you know, to work hard, not just for my own growing my profile, but for those guys as well, because it is an honor to have guys of that caliber in my band. I cannot overstate what great players they are, and they inspire me. You know, like when I'm writing songs, I'm like, well, man, this has got to be good, because the guys have to be impressed. I need to impress them, you know, as much as anybody.
I can't imagine though. They must be stellar because they could never play with you, Damon, if they were not. They have to, you know, the bar is high. They have to get under. They have to get under the bar. So,
Well, you're sweet to say that, Terrie.
it's
Thank you.
true.
And you know, they reciprocate that. You know, look, I've been working really hard during the pandemic, really hustling. You know, pushing to get this record across the finish line. You know, reaching out to fans, trying to stay connected with social media. We've done some live streams that have been a lot of fun and well attended. So, you know, the guys see that and they appreciate that, and it pushes them as well. So, I mean, it's really all we can do right now. You know, you can curl up in a ball and cry and flip out, because it's easy to flip out right now. There's a lot of uncertainty. I
Oh
get it.
yeah. Oh yeah.
But we're choosing to do whatever we can to stay busy, stay healthy, mentally and physically.
Yeah. And that's why we do this feature, because our listeners are like, we need to be connected to the musicians. How are we going to do this? We're always in your studio, hanging out with people and getting meet and greets and going out to shows.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know what? If there's going to be a new Damon Johnson and the Get Ready, you know, recording, we're going to let people know about it. We're going to let people see your face. We're going to let people hear it. And yeah, that's our job in radio as well. And I'm just so happy to connect with you. It's been such a pleasure to talk to you. Got my Thin Lizzy shirt on, you know, in honor of your days in the Liz. I mean, that's great. Scott Gorham calls you and says, hi, would you like to come play some shows? Like, that doesn't always happen. That
It
Alice
was
Cooper calls you and Scott Gorham calls you, and you just get to hang out with all these bands that you grew up listening to. That's crazy.
it's insanity, Terrie. And technically, I guess, I mean, I am still a part of Thin Lizzy. The great thing about Thin Lizzy is the band doesn't play that many shows, which is perfect for me. Like, we did 4 festivals last summer in Europe. Incredible, you know, big crowds, a lot of fun. And I was able to come back home and start working on my next record, you know,
Yeah.
so it's
Yeah.
just right.
Perfect.
It's just
Perfect.
right. So it's an honor to be a part of that band. But good on you for wearing that shirt. we're always playing some Thin Lizzy stuff at these Damon Johnson in the Get Ready shows as well. So it was exciting for me to hear you say that. Damon Johnson in the Get Ready.
Yeah.
Like it's still so new that I'm not accustomed to hearing it. So
Yay.
thank you. It sounds fantastic.
Well, I am so happy that you joined me. It was such a pleasure to see you and chat with you and catch up with you. And we got to do it again. I'm not letting all this time go by. We're doing this again as soon as this whole thing is over.
Terrie, we will. Kudos to our friend Jody for helping us connect
Jody
like this.
J, baby. Yeah.
As soon as she mentioned your name, I was like, oh my God, yes.
Ditto.
Love to
Same
talk
here.
to
She's
Terrie.
like, Damon Johnson. I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't wait. I was like so excited to chat with you. I have an old picture of us that I got to dig out of a box, and I can picture it. We're in the DHA studio. We got the old logo, and I think you're holding up a guitar. I have to find it. And I got to put it up for the fans, you know, because
please do. I'm sure I had drugged my acoustic guitar to the studio.
Oh yeah, many times.
Probably for the morning show, and singing some song when we're drinking coffee and trying to wake up.
Yeah, Damon, I love you. Thank you so much, my friend. It was such a pleasure.
Terrie, continued success to you, good health, and can't wait to see you again in person. All right.
DHA's Reconnect with Rockers is powered by Advantage Contracting and by Karis Lock Company.